The question is, will we get a picture of President Trump and Mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani in front of our Christmas tree this year?
Right.
Because we had quite a spectacle in the Oval Office yesterday.
It was more Valentine's Day than Christmas, if you ask me. In fact, the New York Post wrote, "I love you, ma'am."
Yeah, I did not have bromance on my bingo card,
No.
But it was very interesting because it was a classic Trump signature move, which was everyone thought we were going to see a prelude to the UFC fight at the White House. Instead, he killed him with kindness. Watch some of this.
We've just had a great meeting, a really good, very productive meeting. We have one thing in common. We want this city of ours that we love to do very well. And I wanted to congratulate the mayor. I feel very confident that he can do a very good job. I think he is going to surprise some conservative people, actually.
But just days ago, you referred to President Trump as a despot who betrayed the country. You said you would be his worst nightmare and accused him of having a fascist agenda. Are you planning to retract any of these remarks in order to improve your relationship?
I think both President Trump and we are very clear about our positions and our views, and what I really appreciate about the president is that the meeting that we had focused not on places of disagreement, which there are many, and also focused on the shared purpose that we have in serving New Yorkers.
And I've been called much worse than a despot, so it's not that insulting. But I think he'll change his mind after we get to working together.
We focused on affordability, we focused on the cost of living crisis, and the president and I spoke about the importance of not only building more housing, but also making sure that regulation of housing is something that is manageable to actually get through and not the cause of yet another weight that we see in our state.
We had a meeting today that actually surprised me. He wants to see no crime. He wants to see housing being built. He wants to see rents coming down, all things that I agree with. I think you really have a chance to make it great. I appreciate it.
You know, one of the really wonderful things about that whole scene yesterday was normally if you're the person seated, you're going to be you're not the alpha guy. The alpha guy is usually the guy standing. But among Trump's mastering abilities in situations like this is his ability to be seated and still be sort of the alpha dog. Was so funny to watch. Mamdani was almost like his son. Yes. Standing beside him.
Yes.
Trump was being fatherly. I think you mentioned the statement a couple of weeks ago after Mamdani won. The statement, it was a very generous statement that President Trump put out. Yeah. It was very fatherly or grandfatherly. It was full of wisdom and patience for his young, impressive son. But it did not disappoint that 30 minutes.
So it was so funny. I was sitting in the makeup chair getting ready for the Fox Christmas special when this was happening. And the entire makeup room went silent, was riveted, was clued into this. And then I was so lucky because when it was over, I love always to get your analysis on you broke down President Trump perfectly with David Asman on Fox Business right after. And one of the things that you said, Charlie, that was just spot on is this, President Trump does not like socialism, but he does love New York City. And he realizes that the city he loves is now in the hands of this socialist. Right. And he is not going to let ideology get in the way of making sure New York City survives whatever Mamdani has planned for it. And so he's decided, as you said, to be sort of the Sherpa, the parent in this situation and help guide this young man towards success. What I saw there was clearly Mamdani, just from his win, he's a skilled politician. He's better than, AOC and de Blasio. He's better than them. But he doesn't look as good next to President Trump. President Trump was so magnanimous. He's a master of ceremonies. He was an incredibly gracious, warm host. By the way, he's not faking that. That's who he is. No. Mamdani, on the other hand, had to go to the Democrats to get sort of like, how do I do this? I guess he went over to some of the people who knew, President Trump better and kind of got some advice. President Trump doesn't need advice in this situation. Yeah. He handled it brilliantly. Let me just show you one example where Mamdani just missed an opportunity. President Trump one of the journalists says, hey, what about President Trump? He had, he brought peace into the world. He's creating peace in the world. And he had a chance to really kind of lean in because Trump had shown him how to be gracious, and he just sort of swatted it away and said, well, I appreciate anybody who wants peace, and then moved on. What a missed opportunity after he'd been lavished with so much praise on the part of President Trump.
I think you put your finger on it, Rachel, and that is that the president chose to have this meeting put New Yorkers first.
Yes.
And he is a New Yorker at heart, and he knew, while many across the country were hoping to see a fight or a showdown, President Trump knew that what's best for New York is that these two can work together. And that was the unified message. At one point, our own Jackie Heinrich pressed Mamdani on, but you called him a fascist. And President Trump's like, no, let's not drive that wedge. Let's unite for New York, putting New York first. Meanwhile, in Washington, the House, by the way, held a vote on a resolution to simply condemn socialism, of which 85 plus Democrats, including Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, crossed the aisle to support. So the ideology is clearly being condemned in Washington proper. But President Trump said, look, we're not looking at ideological big picture stuff. We're looking at putting New Yorkers first.
Yeah, and I think that was a test vote more than it was just a show vote. Obviously, these things are always kind of show votes. That was a test vote for them to determine which members of the Democrat Party are just too far gone that they don't even care. They're not even pretending to be anything other than socialist. And and for those 86 that crossed the aisle and voted against socialism, how can they put bills on the floor that makes life miserable for those 86 in the coming year? And we look forward to those votes.
Yeah, we'll break down more of that interview. There's a lot of fascinating moments.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.